All right. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Our refreshments have just arrived. So. The cookies, which is why everybody's actually. All right, so so we have about 30 people here today. You on Zoom, you can only see maybe half or so, but we are discussing the conversation. Thank you very much. We are discussing the conversation tonight. Francis Ford Coppola's 1974 film. I'm Ed Katz. There's a few new faces, so I'll just kind of give you the background. I do marketing by day, but I've been a film and theater reviewer and critic for several years. And
How many years?
Several. 2 on the radio, 2 years on the radio every week. So I'm happy to discuss this with you, and I want to make sure everyone signs in. That's important. And please, if you can, follow Katz Reviews on Facebook or X or Twitter if you're on that, and you can subscribe on YouTube to Ed Katz, and you can see some of the ones we've already recorded. Okay, let's start on the conversation now. And I hope everybody's seen it because we are definitely going to go into spoilers. So, okay, so who thought the movie was well done? Show of hands, yes. Okay. All right, a couple, not so much on Zoom, but most of them here.
Yeah.
How about so-so? Couple here.
I thought it was the best movie I ever saw.
And who did not like it or did not think it was well done?
I
We got
didn't like it.
two
I
here.
didn't like it. I didn't like it.
You- And a couple there. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you did, oh, hello. If you did like the movie, tell me a reason you did like it. Who wants to start? Yes, please, go right ahead.
I love the fact that it was all about the call, C-A-U-L,
Uh-huh.
Harry Call's name. And a call is this unbroken placenta around a baby. And he was always veiled, that plastic raincoat that he had on.
Yes,
His personality was always veiled. Everything was veiled, but I love the lighting in the movie. I love parts of the film noir aspect.
Mhm.
I love the movie. I love it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I appreciate it. And we're going to talk about that. And it's great you picked up on the name because I was doing research and that's when it came up. And by the way, the funny part was the reason they spelled it that way was a typo. It was supposed to be C-A-L-L and someone put in C-A-U-L. And when Coppola saw that, he goes, no, that's wrong. He goes, wait a minute. Actually, I like that. Let's keep that. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Did he understand what the?
Oh, yeah, no, he totally knew, absolutely. Okay, anyone else who did like it want to say something as to some reasons? Yes.
I like the fact that there were so many conversations and so many were important.
Right.
That sometimes I wondered if the initial one was the one that I was supposed to be focused on, if I should be focused on others, especially when he met the woman.
Right, the one where he was bugged, you mean?
Right, yeah.
Right, okay, good. Yes, Fred.
I thought it was interesting. I thought a lot of it was in the first person. And I thought he was a savant, an auditory savant.
Mhm.
There was one scene there in particular as an example where he walks into the building and there's this buzzing sound. And there's a floor buffer. And I was upset about the sound. It bothered me.
Uh-huh,
A lot of the sound bothered me.
Yes,
So I
yes.
was hearing what he was hearing. So
Right.
that was really a well done piece.
yeah, well, the audio was amazing. Walter Murch, who was a sound person, ended up doing the editing also because Coppola liked his take on things, and he started talking to him, he says, now you're a filmmaker, while they were doing the editing, because he really got it. And he said, well, you're doing so great with the audio, why don't you just do the whole editing? So he did. Okay, and someone who did not like it. Anyone want to explain your thoughts on why?
Go ahead.
I
Sure,
just thought it was very slow
okay,
and that it could have sent the same message out in less
in
than
less time,
2 hours, yeah.
okay. It was actually over 4 hours originally. They cut a whole bunch of stuff out, to make it tighter, but yeah, it was
Wow.
originally over, but it was a character study, I mean, real.
Yeah.
It had building drama, but it was mainly a character study, so, and those usually tend to not be as action-packed. Okay. Anyone on Zoom have any comments so far? No, okay, all right, we'll continue. All right, so, Rotten Tomatoes is consensus. The critics, 97% of them approved of it, and of audiences, 89%. IMDb gave it a 7.7, which, if you know IMDb, anything 7.0 or higher is very good. And this Rotten Tomatoes summation is, this tense paranoid thriller presents Francis Ford Coppola at his finest and makes some remarkably advanced arguments about technology's role in society that still resonate today. So why did I choose this film? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Paranoid. Why didn't you say that? I thought that was a good word to put in that review.
Mhm.
Was he paranoid or not?
Well, that doesn't mean you're wrong if you are paranoid.
Well, okay. That's true. Good point.
But I think the way the movie ended kind of shows he may have got a little over the edge.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe.
I
Maybe.
don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Blood in the toilet bowl, part, there's blood in the toilet bowl. So he's wondering about the blood in the toilet bowl.
Yeah,
See, now I remember that toilet bowl scene was used as an ad for the movies.
Wow.
And I thought it was a comedy. Why is this guy, listening to a toilet, right? And then they changed it. When it first came out, I was like a teenager. And I remember seeing.
but somebody was listening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We'll get to the end,
Yes.
what,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
the spoiler,
Yes,
alert.
sir. Yes.
But I think he was paranoid, maybe not about that specific conversation, but he was paranoid about his whole life. He wouldn't tell him, he didn't want anybody to know, he feared that he was gonna be somehow.
Correct.
harmed.
And the 3 locks on the door, right?
But
And he never brought a girl into his apartment.
No. He paid to have the girl he was seeing
The mistress.
stay where she was.
And as soon as she asked a few questions, he
That
was
was
gone.
it, right, exactly.
He lived his profession. He lived.
Correct. That was his life, right.
Question up here.
Oh, we got someone else.
Somebody's sneezing.
Oh, Linnea must have bounced out. She's coming back. One sec.
Oh, no, I'm here. I'm here.
Well, I've
Okay.
got you coming in again, so I don't know, pick whichever.
Oh, okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
I had to wonder, going forward, if, Columbo, with his dad, his constant theme post was a reminder.
Yes, I thought of that too.
And I say you chose it because your Alexa spoke back to you and you hadn't spoken to them yet.
That would be a good motivation, yes. No,
Before election.
so basically I did pick it because Coppola, he's one of America's all-time greatest directors. We've never discussed him yet. This film he made literally at the height of his creative talents. It was in between Godfather's Part 1 and 2, right in between. And I figured most of you probably never saw it before. Am I right? No, how many of you never saw it before this? Okay, like 4/5. Okay.
But now I have a question. It was before Godfather 2, which is considered the best of all,
Mhm.
right? What did he learn from this one that he then took to Godfather 2?
Good question. I didn't see that, but he did use a lot of the actors, several of the actors in those movies. This one and those, yep.
But Ed, he also, the lighting was very.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get to that too. Yeah, I'll get to that because that was an interesting change because he changed cinematographers early on.
Really?
Okay, so did anyone notice some similarities to this movie and one we discussed a while back? There was, it kind of helped inspire him to make this movie. Anyone know which one I'm thinking of? No. Remember Blow Up?
Sure.
Michelangelo Antonioni's film with David Hemmings as the photographer who takes a picture of something and he keeps looking at it closer and closer, and it gets fuzzier and fuzzier the closer he looks at it.
Right.
That movie did inspire him because he actually wrote this in the late 60s originally. Anyone want to guess why it never got made until after The Godfather?
So,
Yes.
did it have to do with missing any tapes and Watergate?
No.
No?
Great guess. And a lot of people, when this movie came out, thought that's what inspired the movie. It was just timing, just the way the time worked. The reason it got made after Godfather is because no studio wanted to do it until he had a huge hit like The Godfather that made $250 million. And then it's like, sure, what do you want? Here, take it. Go ahead. You're green light. And it's like, I want to do this one. Okay, you got it.
Did it make money?
A little, but it was shot for 1.6 million, and worldwide it made about 4 and change. So it was profitable, but not like The Godfather.
And now royalties from our club.
Yeah. So did anyone remember the limo in the movie? There was a blue limo that Cindy Williams was in
Yeah.
towards the end. Okay. You remember it was like a high-end Mercedes luxury limo? That movie, I mean, that car was Francis Ford Coppola's car, and he bought it with George Lucas from a bet, basically, he made with Paramount on The Godfather making a certain amount of money.
Wow, heavy that.
So it went so much, he went into the dealership and said, charge the car to Paramount Pictures. Because he got 6% of the gross on The Godfather.
Oh, really?
He was only paid 125,000, which,
Yeah.
you know, wasn't huge, I mean, for him at that point, but on the gross, 6%.
That's
Yeah.
not the vineyard, eh? It's
So it's like,
not the vineyard.
yeah, like 40 million bucks, so,
But that's pretty unusual to get gross.
at the time, it wasn't, that became more unusual
Oh.
later when they got fancy with the accounting. So the theme though, which I thought is still very relevant, is surveillance versus participation and perception versus reality. And I think that kind of lends some impact to the movie even now. Okay, so I want to get into a little on the reception of the movie. It premiered at Cannes, won the Palme d'Or, the highest honor, 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, Original Screenplay, and Best Sound. In 1995, just a little over 20 years after it was made, it was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. And they only do, like 25 works of art a year. It was, quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It's included among the American Film Institute's 1998 list of the 400 movies nominated for the top 100 greatest American movies. It's included on Roger Ebert's Great Movies list, and it's one of the 1001 movies you must see before you die.
You can go now.
Process on us. Okay, so Coppola was on the middle of 3 children. Does anyone know who his sister is?
Sophia. Sophia.
No, that's his daughter. That's good. Yeah, yes, Talia Shire, his younger sister from Rocky.
Right.
Yes. And anyone know, Simon already got the daughter, Sophia, who did Virgin Suicides, Lost in Translation, and Best Director nomination, the first by a woman, and also Marie Antoinette, among other films. How about his nephews? Anyone know who he's got 2 famous nephews? That's one. Nicolas Cage is one. And then this one's, I knew that one. I didn't know this one. Jason Schwartzman is his nephew.
Jason Schwartzman?
Who's in like all the Wes Anderson movies. Yeah.
How does
What do you
the
mean?
sportsman come to be a?
Where did Schwartzman come from?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's New York, come on.
Another funny aspect of Coppola, his name, the middle name, Ford. It actually
Is
came,
Coppola Jewish?
No.
not that I saw, but his father was a flautist and was an arranger and assistant orchestra director for the Ford Sunday Evening Hour, which was a concert radio series sponsored by Ford Motor Company. Coppola was born at Henry Ford Hospital, and those 2 connections to Henry Ford inspired the parents to choose the middle name Ford for their son. That's where it came from.
Was it a family name?
No, not at all.
Wasn't.
They eventually moved to New York because the father went to be the principal flautist for the NBC Symphony Orchestra. Coppola, when he was a boy, contracted polio, and he was bedridden for large periods of his childhood. sound kind of like Mr. Rogers. If anyone remember that story about Mr. Rogers, similar?
Sounds like Paul, wasn't he? Didn't we say he was paralyzed?
Yeah.
Yes, Harry Paul, very good, right, yep, that, there's a total similarity there, right. Good catch, good catch. So he made homemade puppet shows and he started editing his family films while he was laid up. He had an interest in theater after reading A Streetcar Named Desire when he was 15. And he was not a great student, but he was interested in technology and engineering, and his nickname was Science as he was going through school. Went to the New York Military Academy, started at Hofstra College as a theater arts major, got a scholarship in playwriting, and then he got inspired by Sergei Eisenstein's film October, 10 Days That Shook the World, especially the editing, and that convinced him to pursue cinema rather than theater. Elia Kazan also influenced him. Wait till you hear who his classmates were at Hofstra. James Caan and Lainey Kazan and radio artist Joe Frank. He later cast Lainey Kazan in One from the Heart and James Caan in 3 of his movies, Rain People, Gardens of Stone, and of course, The Godfather, where he was Sonny.
So how old is he? When was this?
He's, I think about 80 now. I don't remember, I don't write down his date of birth. Okay, he was not Paramount's first choice to direct The Godfather. They wanted Sergio Leone to do it, but big Italian filmmaker, spaghetti westerns, and everything. Anyway, he declined in order to direct his own gangster movie, Once Upon a Time in America. Robert Evans, the famous producer, wanted the picture to be directed by an Italian American to make the film, quote, ethnic to the core, unquote, and Evans's chief assistant, Peter Bart, suggested Coppola. And they also thought he'd be able to get a good deal on him because the poor reception of his last movie was The Rain People. It didn't get great notices. And Coppola initially turned down the job because he thought Mario Puzo's novel was sleazy and sensationalist. He described it as, quote, pretty cheap stuff, unquote. But his film company, American Zoetrope, owed over $400,000 to Warner Brothers for budget overruns in the film THX 1138, which he and George Lucas made. And anyone remember who starred in that one? He was in this movie too. No, THX 1138, not Star Wars, going back earlier. Robert Duvall. Yep.
It was stored, but it was interesting. It was a funny thing how they put Duvall as not even,
What role did Robert?
wasn't in here.
Okay, right. So Robert Duvall was uncredited in the movie.
Yeah.
He was
The director.
the chairman,
Yeah.
the director, right, of the corporation.
Well, why did he not have?
So the reason was he'd become a really big star for The Godfather, and he thought it would detract from Gene Hackman.
Oh.
And people would think he was the star of the movie if his name was in it. So I said, no, just keep me off of it and let Gene Hackman be the star, because he is the star of the movie. And Hackman's profile was not nearly as big. He had one pretty big role before this, which was, he did The French Connection, right.
I never sang for my father.
No, his earlier one was, he was in Bonnie and Clyde. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. But he kept going back to do theater, and all the shows he was in would flop. Like one performance, 10 performances, they'd be gone right away, even on Broadway. He
So
didn't have a good
talking
track.
about the flop and the blue limo and the money issue with him, how about his winemaking? Did that, have any relationship to?
That was later. That was
Much
back in
later.
the 70s.
Had
yeah.
no relationship.
That's the
to
last
money
10 years.
or anything.
Well, he had plenty of money to be able to invest in it, so that's for sure. Yeah.
What was the company that the boss, the,
Nondescript.
we
They
don't
didn't
know.
want to go there.
So we don't know if it's FBI, CIA, or any.
Oh, no, it was a private company. Yeah, it wasn't government, yeah. Okay, so because of the financial pressures, he reversed his decision along with advice from his friends and family. He was officially announced as director of this again of The Godfather. Yeah, he agreed to receive $125,000, 6% of the gross rentals, right? He later decided, I'm going back to The Godfather for a reason, because it really helped launch him. He found a deeper theme in the material and decided it should not just be a film about organized crime, but also a family chronicle and a metaphor for capitalism in America. There was a disagreement between Paramount and Coppola on casting. He wanted to cast Marlon Brando. Paramount wanted either Ernest Borgnine or Danny Thomas. Yeah. He was told by then president of Paramount Pictures, quote, Marlon Brando will never appear in this motion picture. He pleaded with the executives and was allowed to cast Brando only if he appeared in the film for much less money than his previous films. Only if he would perform a screen test and put up a bond saying he would not cause a delay in the production because he was notorious for doing that. And he did. He did. And then, of course, he won the Oscar and he refused to accept it. That was the time when Brando refused. Coppola would later recollect, quote, The Godfather was a very unappreciated movie when we were making it. They were very unhappy with it. They didn't like the cast. They didn't like the way I was shooting it. I was always on the verge of getting fired. So it was an extremely nightmarish experience. I had 2 little kids and the third one was born during that. We lived in a little apartment. I was basically frightened that they didn't like it. They had as much as said that. So when it was all over, I wasn't at all confident that it was going to be successful and that I'd ever get another job. How about that?
He did okay.
He did okay, right. So over his whole career, and I want to make sure you guys are aware. So he made Finian's Rainbow also in '68. He got a couple nominations for that. The Godfather, Conversation, Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now, One from the Heart, then Rumblefish, The Cotton Club, Peggy Sue Got Married, also a fun film. Tucker, The Man in His Dream, Godfather 3, okay. Bram Stoker's Dracula, and The Rainmaker. Now, in Coppola, there was a ranking of his, he made The Outsiders. Anyone remember that movie?
Yes.
It's more famous for the cast than the movie. Listen to who he chose to have in that movie. They were all kids. Emilio Estevez, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, C. Thomas Howell, Diane Lane, and Ralph Macchio, Karate Kid. Not bad, right? Okay, so Vulture magazine ranked his top 5 films. Number 5 was Tucker. Number 4 was Apocalypse Now. Number 3 was The Godfather. Number 2 was The Godfather Part 2. The Conversation was number 1.
Wow.
That was Vulture magazine, which is from the New Yorker.
What magazine?
Vulture, which is a subsidiary of the New Yorker. Now, Movie Web ranked at number 5 when they did his top movie. They ranked The Conversation number 5, but still certainly not shabby given all the films he did, including Patton. Okay, Gene Hackman. I wanted to cover a little on Gene Hackman, who also had an unusual history. His parents divorced when he was 13. His father left the family. He decided he wanted to become an actor when he was 10. Went to University of Illinois under the GI Bill, but moved back to California. Now, this was funny. He joined the Pasadena Playhouse where he befriended another aspiring actor. Maybe you heard of him, Dustin Hoffman. They were both seen as outsiders by their classmates, and both of them were voted least likely to succeed. I just thought this was hysterical, right? A 2004 article in Vanity Fair described Hackman, Hoffman, and Robert Duvall as struggling California-born actors and close friends, sharing New York City apartments in various 2-person combinations in the 60s. Hackman was even working at a Howard Johnson's restaurant when he in California when he encountered an instructor. No, Howard Johnson's in New York. When he encountered an instructor who had been at the Pasadena Playhouse, and he said that the fact that Hackman was working there proved he wouldn't amount to anything. And a Marine officer who saw him working as a doorman said, "Hackman, you're a sorry son of a bitch." So Hackman had a quote on that. He said, "It was more psychological warfare because I wasn't going to let those effers get me down. I insisted with myself that I would continue to do whatever it took to get a job. It was like me against them, and in some way, unfortunately, I still feel that way. But I think if you're really interested in acting, there's a part of you that relishes the struggle. It's a narcotic in the way that you are trained to do this work and nobody will let you do it, so you're a little bit nuts. You lie to people, you cheat, you do whatever it takes to get an audition and get a job." So Bonnie and Clyde was sort of his big break that got him on the radar. In 1969, he played a ski coach in the movie Downhill Racer. Anyone remember who starred in that one?
And what's Redford.
No, I have a question.
Redford, Robert Redford. Yes.
You know, in the movie, if I'm correct, he was playing a 44-year-old man.
Yes.
But he seemed a lot older.
Oh, yeah.
How old was he?
He was 44. Yeah. At one point in the movie, he lied to a girl, said he was 42,
Right.
but he was 40.
And he's 94 now. and
But
still
he,
alive.
now, wait a minute, now, that's interesting you noticed about, he looked, because he was trim and fit when he got cast to make the movie, and reading it and discussing it with Coppola, he knew he needed to make changes. So he put on weight, didn't shave nicely, had a bad haircut, and started wearing these glasses that made him look like a geek.
Yeah.
Totally to change the way he looked, intentionally, for this role. And he also learned to play the sax for this role.
And what was his role in Bonnie and Clyde?
He was one of the, like a brother of one of the characters. Yeah, maybe, Bonnie's,
Bonnie's.
yeah, Bonnie's brother, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, and then he just made so many movies. I mean, and this is, he nearly accepted the role in a TV show. The father in the Brady Bunch.
Oh, no.
But he declined it for what he thought was a more promising TV and movie role, and probably a good thing, because he probably would have been typecast, right? Okay, he did I Never Sang for My Father, right?
That was the most amazing, that was an amazing movie.
He won his Oscar for, as he wasn't even nominated for Best Actor for this, although he considers it his finest work, and a lot of critics do too. He won it for The French Connection. And then after that, he starred in 10 films over 3 years, not including Young Frankenstein, where he had an uncredited cameo as the blind man, Young Frankenstein, with the monster, which is a hysterical scene. Okay, remember, he was in the Poseidon Adventure. Scarecrow with Al Pacino, Night Moves for director Arthur Penn. He played, no, that's French Connection 2, he did. Burt Reynolds, Liza Minnelli, and he were in Lucky Lady, which was a big flop. He was
one of those submarine movies too, wasn't he? Commander in like Hunt for the.
Those Poseidon.
well, Poseidon Adventure was in, yeah, he wasn't, I don't think he was in Hunt for Red October, not that I recall seeing.
Sean Connery, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Kramer versus Kramer.
He was in
No, sorry. He was in the Domino Principle for Stanley Kramer. I was reading too fast. He was in A Bridge Too Far. Famous role in Superman, the movie, the original one. He played Lex Luthor. And he did the sequel, 2 sequels after as well. Now, Alan Parker, who directed him in Mississippi Burning in 1988, said, Gene is someone who is a very intuitive and instinctive actor. The brilliance of Gene Hackman is that he can look at a scene and he can cut through to what is necessary, and he does it with extraordinary economy. He's the quintessential movie actor. He's never showy ever, but he's always right on. He was opposite Barbra Streisand in All Night Long, and with Warren Beatty in Reds. So he's tons of movies. Okay. And then Hoosiers. Can't forget Hoosiers, right? He was the coach. Right, big role. Okay. He even had a supporting role in Postcards from the Edge and Class Action. So in Class Action, which he made like 24 years after this movie, probably about 40 movies after that. He basically played the same character, and when they showed him as a younger man, they used clips from the conversation of him in it to show him. So they were trying to show a continuity there. All right, so I've got anyone have any comments at this point before I go to a couple of critics' comments?
It's interesting that you say the continuity of his previous performances. Dustin Hoffman did the same thing. I wonder if, when they associated at an earlier time, that was part of their routine.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. All right, so there's some interesting, and I think you'll get a kick out of this because one word keeps coming up in the reviews I saw for this movie. So the first one I saw, a guy named Sean Price, squeezed right in after The Godfather and before Part 2, just 2 of the most treasured pieces of cinema, Coppola made another film that actually may be his best. Shannon Harvey in the Sunday Times from Australia wrote, Coppola's remastered masterpiece of modern-day paranoia is far more than a simple rehashing of a classic slice of cinema. It proves to be more prescient now than ever. Okay, Walter Chaw. The Conversation is, for me, the masterpiece of American cinema. He wrote that in 2011. In 2002, when a DVD came out, urban cinephile, wrote, "If you didn't catch this fabulous thriller first time around, don't miss this opportunity to see it." Oh, it was a re-release. Gloriously restored on the big screen. The Conversation is a masterpiece. Jonathan Perry from the Tyler Morning Telegraph in Texas, and this was in 2002. "It's a masterpiece of mounting paranoia." And Emmanuel Levy, the critic, said, "This is one of Coppola's masterpieces, a prophetic film about paranoia, the growing role of technology in our daily lives, and the impossibility of privacy even in public spaces." So masterpiece and 5 different reviews. Okay, now there's, I do want to read part of a review because I like usually reading Roger Ebert. He didn't have the best take on this. I think this guy from WBUR Public Radio in Boston had a better take. At this point, he wrote this in 2022, so it's just 2 years old. Coppola had been in legacy mode as of late. Over the past few years, the maestro has released revised edits of Apocalypse Now, The Outsiders, Cotton Club, and Godfather Part 3. The conversation needs to be heard in an auditorium and the kind of equipment you don't have at home. It's an intricately constructed oral experience about the act of listening and how sometimes our perceptions of sounds are shaped by what we want to hear. Hackman stars as Harry Call, a buttoned-up wiretap expert known as the best bugger in the business. He's recruited by a nameless corporation to record a secretive young couple, Frederick Forrest and Cindy Williams, making furtive plans amid bustling crowds and a jazz band in San Francisco's Union Square. The film's opening is a dazzling tour de force during which snatches of their dialogue are captured by different devices, including shotgun mics wielded like snipers on rooftops, catching the lover's lips in the crosshairs, to later be assembled and refined by Harry back at his workshop. The cryptic conversation sounds different every time we hear it, alternating on a moment-to-moment basis between banal small talk and something much more menacing. The Fey functionary who hired him, played by an impossibly young and sinister Harrison Ford, seems to want this tape awfully badly, and even though Harry's not supposed to ask any questions in his line of work, he's starting to have a few. He's also pretty sure he won't like the answers. The conversation is a character study disguised as a mystery, more interested in paranoid Harry's psychological unraveling than in any conspiracy that's actually afoot. We know Hackman has such a feral, roughhousing screen presence, it's a shock to see him withdrawn so deeply into the character's guilt-ridden neuroses. Okay. Written by Coppola in 1969 and rejected by every studio in town, it was eventually produced as a low-budget indulgence by Paramount Pictures, who wanted to keep their newly minted superstar happy and hopefully cajole him into making The Godfather Part 2. Coppola had such a miserable time on the first film, he desperately didn't want to direct the sequel, suggesting to the studio that the project would be perfect for an up-and-coming kid named Martin Scorsese. He eventually tried to get out of it by making an astronomical salary demand he was sure would get him laughed out of the room. They accepted. So as the writer writes here, yes, it was an offer he couldn't refuse. Ironically, for a director so adept at sweeping popular ethics, The Conversation was the kind of interior personal art film he had originally envisioned himself making and held closest to his heart, though even on such a small scale, the process was anything but smooth. And here's where we get to how the film was made and the shooting of it. Coppola clashed with the original cinematographer Haskell Wexler, who was eventually replaced by Bill Butler. All that remains of Wexler's work is the bravura opening sequence, which you remember the aerial shot over the square, Union Square in San Francisco. So that was Haskell Wexler, who was phenomenal at doing those kind of shots. Also, Hackman was a mercurial star under the best of circumstances, and he admittedly had a horrible time getting under Harry's skin.
Sorry, so why was there a new cinematographer put in?
He disagreed. Coppola and Wexler kept disagreeing over the way to shoot it. So Wexler was the cinematographer. I have it later, but I don't want to try it. It's like 20 pages long. Wexler was the cinematographer for the Thomas Crown Affair, which was a slick crime movie. He wanted it to look like that. And Coppola's like, no, that's all wrong. I brought you in because you made Medium Cool. Anyone remember Medium Cool?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. A lot of you don't. All right. If you can ever get it, it's not a documentary, but it uses actual footage of the Chicago riots during the Democratic Convention in '68. And Haskell Wexler kept it with his actress walking through the crowds as they were rioting, not knowing what was going to happen. And they used a lot of that footage. But it was like cinema verite, and that's the kind of look Coppola wanted Wexler to do, and Wexler saw it completely different. So he said, I can't work with you. You have the totally wrong vision for what I have for you. So that's why they switched. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Did he have control at that point?
Oh, yeah, this was his movie after making The
Oh.
Godfather. It's like, whatever you
Oh,
want,
that's right.
Francis, you got it. Yeah,
The director always.
Yeah.
Well.
almost all, yeah.
At that point.
Okay, Coppola said he got the idea for Harry's dilemma after hearing about film editors who fall in love with leading ladies they've never met, smitten by spending all day with their footage. Hearing and rehearing this conversation over and over, both we and Harry make all sorts of assumptions about these two strangers, our minds forcing the puzzle pieces to fit where they don't belong, with tragic results. Rewatching the film, it's impossible not to be bowled over by all the visual analogs Coppola comes up with for the character's isolation, constantly filming him behind glass or in a tacky, transparent plastic raincoat that's easily one of the ugliest costumes in movie history.
I guess they didn't win the Oscar for costumes.
Well, it could have, because it was really well done. His workshop is a massive, empty industrial floor space in which Harry occupies a small corner, locked in a cage of his own design. The gradual demolition of the apartment building across the street from Harry's is both an extension of his mental breakdown and the tearing down of walls in a movie where privacy only exists to be invaded. Okay, Roger Ebert in '74, when it was brand new, did have some notes on it. He called Gene Hackman's character of Harry Call one of the most affecting and tragic characters in the movies. He ranks with someone like Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. Pretty astute observation. It's not so much a movie about bugging as about the man who does it. And Hackman's performance is a great one. He does not want to get involved. Whenever he says anything like that, it sounds in italics, but he does. And they references Blow Up. Both movies are about the unreality of what seems real. We have here in our hands a document that is maddeningly concrete and yet refuses to reveal its meaning. And the meaning seems to be a matter of life and death. The conversation is about paranoia, invasion of privacy, bugging, and also about the bothersome problem of conscience. The Watergate crew seems, for the most part, to have had no notion what they were doing, that what they were doing was objectively wrong. Harry wants to have no notion, but he does, and it destroys him. Now, that was Roger Ebert. And I won't say that. A guy from the BBC, Nick Pilovich, quick comment on him. Haunted by the bloody consequences of an earlier assignment, Call becomes convinced his ingenious invasions of privacy will put the young couple's lives at risk. In contrast to the breadth of Coppola's mob sagas, the conversation is an intricate and unsettlingly subtle character study with a very strong performance from Hackman. It is also a study of cinematic voyeurism, differing in its concern with eavesdropping rather than watching, with the added edge that the voyeur is implicated in the killings. All right. Okay, the Times was mixed on it. They liked Hackman's performance. They referenced Blow Up. Says Coppola has certainly succeeded in making surveillance repulsive. While that's hardly a new notion, we can thank him for withering the last tendrils of romance. The dagger and the cloak have lost all dash. They're equally dangerous and dirty. And I only found two quick negative reviews. One was from John Simon in Esquire. The icy fascination soon succumbs to two forms of excess. One is Coppola's growing infatuation with the technical aspects of the subject. The other is a mystery story that thickens into ever greater contrivance, improbability, and opacity. And then a guy, Fred Topol, I'm not familiar with him, about.com. He wrote, it's an outdated techno thriller. Hackman is great, but it doesn't hold up. So, okay. I've got some fun trivia stuff. We've got a little time. Okay. Anyone have any comments right now? Yes.
Same question. I mean, throughout, you've been talking about perception, paranoia. I think they tweaked our perception of that conversation. When I listened to the beginning, it said they would kill us if they would kill us if they had the chance. And later on, it said they would kill us if it had the chance, implying that we should kill them.
Right, which totally changes the meaning. I was gonna get to that.
Right.
You beat me to it. I have it here, but that was, there was actually a comment. I hope I can find it. I want to read it to you because it's specifically about that exact point. Oh boy, I hope I can find it because this relates directly to what you're saying. Oh, while I'm looking, the mime. You remember the mime in the movie in the square?
Bobby Shields.
Right, Shields and Yarnell. That was Shields.
Oh, yeah, I recognized him from San Francisco. Oh, yeah.
Very good, very good. Okay, no, that's not it. No. Oh, is this it?
What was the purpose of the mine? What was the purpose of it?
I couldn't find anything specifically about it, other than it's just to serve as counterpoint to what was going on. We're listening to a conversation, he's a mime, it's just a little counterpoint.
Conversation, mine.
And the mom doesn't talk.
I'm not seeing it.
What was the relevancy of the saxophone and the jazz? And when he
To the
tore
point.
that apartment apart, he didn't tear his saxophone.
No.
That's where it was.
Later than
Yeah.
that.
That's what the
That
bug
would
was.
be the guess, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was in the phone like the other guys.
No, he took that totally apart.
I thought it was gonna be in the statue, the religious.
Right, the statue,
Yeah,
yeah.
He
That
let
was
us,
the
he let us
significance of that,
down
right?
that road.
Yeah.
He took apart everything, he didn't want to take apart the religious statue, and he
No.
finally did, and it's completely empty, which is another,
He was
you know,
about
metaphor.
it, he destroyed it, and that must have been a real issue for him.
Right.
Yeah.
If he really resisted doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sorry, go back to your point again, please restate
Just
that.
that when you listen to the conversation.
Right, okay.
At the beginning, it said,
Yep.
they would kill us if they had the chance.
Right.
They said they would kill us if they had the chance.
Right, so, I'm trying to find who said it, there was another filmmaker who criticized Coppola because he said you were cheating. You re-recorded it, and it's different, and he didn't address it, ironic.
I think he had a combination of tapes that he played at different speeds and different location, that it sounded differently.
That's what you're supposed to think,
Yeah.
yes, but in reality, they did re-record it, so they did cheat. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, they did cheat, okay. One thing that was not widely noted about the film's plot at the time and of its initial release was the vital tape recording is in reality two different recordings of the same sentence being read by the same actor, with special emphasis on a different word in the second one than in the first.
Yeah.
So great catch. I noticed it too. I was like doing a double take. It was only when videotape became widely used and people were able to record the film from its television showings, or else watch a video cassette of it, that it became noticeable that this emphasis was audibly different. Oh, here it is. Brian De Palma, when promoting his similarly themed film Blow Out in 1981, accused Coppola in several interviews of, quote, a terrible cheat. So that was it. So because now, so I agree with Ben. What we're supposed to take from it is that when he's amplifying and tweaking it, he gets the controls better. He hears the emphasis a little different. In reality, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Let's just face it.
What did happen to Frederick Park?
He made a lot of movies. I mean, Apocalypse Now, obviously, but he was also in American Beauty. He was terrific in that. So, yeah. All right. No, I'm sorry. That was Chris. Somebody named Chris. Coogan? No, not Chris. Coogan, somebody else. Sorry, wrong actor. But yeah, he was in a lot of movies, but he kind of faded out as a leading man after a while. Yeah, he did. All right. So that scene. This was fun at the warehouse. So you remember the Bernie character who was a competitive bugger who wanted to team up with him, but we kept trying to insult him while he was doing it. Not the original guy who was cast. The original guy kept making more demands for money and concessions, like for food and limo service and things like that, and they fired him. And we got Alan Garfield as the character to take over. And he had bragged in the film, his character brags that 12 years before, he had recorded the calls of an unnamed presidential candidate and may have determined who won the election, presumably referring to the 1960 election when Kennedy narrowly won over Nixon. Okay. Right. Right, so, yeah, Butler was the cinematographer. Oh, okay, by the way, they said this was not the only time that Haskell Wexler would be fired by a director. The other time was by Milos Forman for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, so, yeah, it's too bad because he's a phenomenal cinematographer. Okay.
Guys, you mentioned that it was 4 hours. You originally had it. Is there
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours? Was it a negotiation with the studio that they get?
No, he
down
realized
to
it was,
2 hours?
he realized it was way too long, yeah.
So he was comfortable with.
So what they cut was a subplot of Harry dealing with his neighbors who complained, because originally Harry was supposed to own the building he was in. That was supposed to be his apartment building. And they ended up changing it. And the part of the woman who played the landlord was a bigger part where she was someone else in the movie. She only was not seen anymore. She was just heard on the phone, barely.
And then she delivered something into his apartment that he had to open 3 locks
Right,
to get into.
right.
Yeah.
Because he knew that.
Right.
So it says most
Having
significant was a
different
subplot of
things.
Harry dealing with his neighbors who complained about the building's plumbing problems, unaware that Harry owns the building. Other scenes feature Harry consulting his lawyer, played by Abe Vigoda, who was in The Godfather, and was also, if you remember Barney Miller, he was Detective Fish, okay? About the apartment situation.
It would have changed, if he owned the building, it would change his whole persona.
Right, right, exactly, absolutely. So also there was a scene where Harry convincing his teenage niece, who was played by Mackenzie Phillips, not to run away from home. All cut out, all cut out.
A good cutout.
Yeah, that's the thing, you didn't really, it was interesting in terms of the story development, but you didn't really know about his past life, like, they mentioned something about his mother did something terrible to him, what was that?
Well, they didn't really get into it, but they kept referencing the part of the conversation that Cindy Williams kept saying when she saw the homeless guy. Remember what she said about the homeless guy?
Yes.
What?
Sad.
Somebody say, come on.
Somebody
But
had
there
that
was-
line.
would have loved him.
Yeah.
But there was more to it than that.
Well, wait, but what did she say when she saw the homeless guy?
Somebody's
Somebody-
baby.
Somebody's baby boy,
Yeah.
and they kept replaying that. Hackman,
Yes.
as the main character, kept replaying that scene,
Yes.
which you have to wonder if there's a connection there, because he's so isolated and starved for affection.
But
Yes.
he did say something, and I went back to try and figure it out,
He said,
something about his mother.
when he was paralyzed, his mother, put him in a tub.
bathtub,
Yes,
or the
yeah,
shower.
isolated, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she had put him in a warm tub and put holy oil.
It was a bad break all over.
And it all went back to his faith and his, when he realized that he was responsible for the murder of that family earlier on, when he went to confession, he didn't confess that as a sin.
Correct.
He couldn't do that, and that's why you couldn't say the Lord's name in vain in front of him, because he was wrestling with
But in
this God thing.
that confession scene, though, he said he hadn't been in the confession in a few months, but that event was years ago, so he
Right.
didn't mention that.
Right?
Yeah, he wasn't even honest with his father confessor. Oh, so you remember there's a story about Watergate on the news? The guy reading the news story, you only hear it, you don't see it, was Coppola.
Ah.
Little bit of a Hitchcock thing, putting himself in the film just a little bit. Okay, and you know about Harry with the religious guilt. Oh, I did want to mention, there was another guy, you remember the guy who played Stan in the movie? His buddy,
Yeah.
sort of.
That was.
Familiar. Who was he?
That was John Cazale,
Yeah.
who only made 5 movies. Wait till you hear what they are. You remember The Godfather, he was in The Godfather, he was Fredo, right? So he was the guy in The Godfather, The Conversation, Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, he was the guy with Al Pacino, and The Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
Those were the 5 movies he made before he died from lung cancer at age 42. And his girlfriend at the time was Meryl Streep. He was a heavy smoker, died of lung cancer, but
His last movie, they had to film all of his parts up front because he was dying.
exactly, The Deer
And
Hunter.
somebody was saying, we've never seen so much love for a man that Meryl Streep had for him.
Right, right, that was the love of her life at the time.
I'm glad you said that because his face was haunting. I said, I know this guy. I know.
Yeah, well, he had glasses on in this movie, which he didn't have in the other parts.
Dog Day Afternoon, that's, whoop, now
Oh,
I
yeah,
got it.
yeah, he's the one who ad-libbed, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
What country do you want to go? He said Montana.
Yeah.
All right. And, okay, so there was a song at the end of the movie when he's, so David Shire did the Haunting Piano soundtrack. And you remember at the end of the movie when he's destroying his apartment? The song that they're playing in the background is a song that David Shire called Harry Carried. Oh, that sounds very interesting. All right,
All right.
Okay,
We'll see you again.
yes, thank you for coming.
Night.
All right, that's pretty much all I have. Anyone have any comments or anything?
Well, I do want to continue this thing about the saxophone.
Okay, go ahead, sure.
Was there or was there not a bug? And was it in the sax or was it not in the sax? You check every other place, so obviously.
I mean, I figure there has to have been a bug because of the stuff they heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew. So they got it somewhere.
How could he put a bug in the saxophone and still play without, it wasn't like they were so small at the time.
No, they were. Yeah, I mean, you know, they had the little ones in the phones that were like this big, you know.
Buttons.
Yeah, like the dime size, a little more than a dime size.
I'm naive about this. How many people were in on this from the beginning?
Okay, so, right, we didn't even talk about the murder, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we should cover that.
I mean, I think Cindy Williams and that was, I don't know if that was, they just were setting up the head of the company to get killed.
Yes, and so the other thing you have to realize is Harrison Ford was totally complicit in it.
Totally. He was involved. Yeah.
So I thought that was significant too. So they did it in the hotel room. And then they made it look like he was killed in a car accident.
Did we see the body? Did we see the body?
Well, we see the body on the newspaper, sort of, not really. I mean, we see it from the back with the bag over him and the blood. You don't see Robert Duvall from the front then, you just see him from the back.
But why did they have to go to such ends to get this conversation to then convince the guy to go to the, you know, with his girlfriend?
Well,
Why
the
they just
thinking
kill him and
was
then do-
that he may kill them.
Right.
So their conversation was about being able to kill him before he kills them.
Right.
That was why they decided to do it. And
Oh, so you don't think it was that they just said, we gotta get control of this company, so let's contrive.
well, that was a way to do it, but it was because I think they were afraid he was gonna kill probably her first.
What's that, but was this about control of the company or was?
Yes,
it
that's
about-
what I got at the end. That was according to the will, yeah.
Was it about the love affair?
No.
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 She is.
The ultimate part was about the power, not the love, yeah.
She was the wife.
She was the wife, Cindy Williams was his much younger wife,
That's
yeah.
how she gets
And the
control.
director found out about it and was gonna do them in, and they said, let's do him in first, and they did, and then she had control of the company.
And what
Right.
about the role of Harrison Ford? How was he implicated?
Well, he was in with them,
He was in
Yeah.
it.
and that was completely revealed at the end. There was sort of a little hint to it, because when they were watching, before Gene Hackman walked in, before he makes his presence known, he's watching them discuss it, and Harrison Ford is replaying scenes to sort of figuratively dig the knife in the director. He's saying, you're playing this again just to like hurt me, aren't you? He says, no, I think it's important you hear it.
Do you think that there was any part of Gene Hackman's character that wanted to protect these two young lovers?
Absolutely. That's why he didn't even know it was so important until Harrison Ford wants it so badly. And then he's like, I'm missing something here. I gotta go back and check it and clean it up more. And that's when he found it. Yeah.
I thought one of the twists was that because that conversation where he kept saying that he would do it to us if he could. I felt that was his rationalization, so I wasn't sure that the other guy actually was gonna kill him in the end.
Right. You don't know that he was gonna kill them. We have no idea about that. Right. That was
Why
just.
do we see the blood and why do we see the shower scene and all the things that he imagines are going on in that room, and then it doesn't turn out to be true?
Well, remember what happened to him earlier that Bernie kept teasing him about in the warehouse scene?
Right.
That it was visions of this is what's gonna happen now.
Oh,
I did this happened before, this is what's gonna happen now.
But you're putting a positive twist that he felt sorry for these lovers and didn't, I think it was his guilt. He didn't want to have it happen again
Yeah, but that's
to himself.
Either way,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, either way, right.
his own paranoia versus him being a wonderful person and wanting. to-
No, I'm not saying he was a wonderful person.
No.
No, but a lot of people wouldn't feel guilt, so the fact that he felt guilt is something.
Right, he did have a conscience somehow, yep.
It was confusing where the hotel room was completely sterile, clean,
Yes.
and then blood came out of the toilet.
Yeah.
So what's that about? Do you,
That was imagined.
Just
he
hallucination.
imagined it? Yeah, okay,
That was his fear,
yeah. But there was truth. Okay.
that it was coming up after
Right,
him,
right.
essentially, chasing him down, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I
Ed,
I
you're the winner.
almost forgot to
Winner.
talk
Yeah.
about.
You did a great job today. Thank you.
All right, so, everybody hit the sign up sheet, right? Okay, great, and, so, just send me your email with your requests. Thank you, everybody. Gonna stop, let me just stop the recording.